My stepsister slept with my husband and married her. The betrayal I never saw coming. I never imagined that the very person I grew up with, who had shared my deepest secrets and stood by me through thick and thin, could be the one to shatter my world. Life has a cruel way of showing you the fragility of trust. And for me, it was my stepsister, Anna, who would ultimately break everything I held dear. It all started a year ago when my husband, Daniel, and I had just celebrated our third wedding anniversary. The day had been perfect. Daniel had surprised me with a weekend getaway to a beautiful cabin by the lake, and we spent the time reconnecting and reminiscing about the life we had built together. The spark in his eyes that weekend made me believe we were invincible. But as the saying goes, the devil hides in plain sight. And I had always been close to Daniel. From the moment I introduced them, they seemed to click. At first, I didn't think much of it after all. Daniel was charismatic, and Anna was my best friend. She had a way of making everyone feel comfortable around her. I loved that they got along because, in a strange way, it felt like we were all one big family. I didn't know then that I was nurturing the very bond that would later destroy me. About 6 months ago, I started noticing changes in Daniel. He became distant, spending longer hours at work, glued to his phone, and often coming home late, claiming he was too tired to talk. We used to share everything, but suddenly, he became a closed book. At night, I would lie next to him, staring at the ceiling, wondering what had gone wrong. My heart screamed at me to confront him, but my mind reasoned that it was probably just work stress. I trusted him, how could I not? He was my husband, but the gnawing feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. It only grew stronger with time, especially whenever Anna was around. It started as a whisper, then a quiet voice, and finally a roar in my head. Anna, my stepsister, was visiting more often than usual. She dropped by unannounced, staying for hours, sometimes even overnight. She was always laughing with Daniel, their inside jokes leaving me on the outside. I began to feel like a stranger in my own home. I tried to brush it off, convincing myself that I was overthinking it. After all, Anna had always been bubbly and affectionate. But there were moments, fleeting, stolen glances between the two that sent a chill down my spine. Then, one evening, while Daniel was showering, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. My heart raced as I picked it up, hesitating for a moment before unlocking it. I never invaded his privacy before, but something compelled me to look. The messages on his screen turned my blood to ice. The room spun around me, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. My hands shook as I scrolled through their conversation pictures, secret meetings, promises made under the guise of lies. My heart shattered with each passing message. They had been together for months, right under my nose. I sat there, staring at the screen, numb. How could they do this to me? My stepsister and my husband, two people I loved more than anything, betraying me in the worst possible way. Anger boiled inside me, threatening to spill over. But I knew I couldn't confront them yet. I needed time to think, to plan. If they thought they could get away with this, they were wrong. The next few weeks were a living nightmare. I had to pretend everything was fine, smiling through the pain, while secretly gathering evidence of their affair. Every time Anna came over, I watched her closely. She would hug me, kiss me on the cheek, and tell me how much she loved me, all while sneaking off to be with Daniel when I wasn't looking. It was sickening. One night, I decided to follow them. I had overheard Anna telling Daniel to meet her at a hotel on the outskirts of town. My heart pounded in my chest as I drove to the location, my mind racing with thoughts of revenge. When I arrived, I parked in the shadows waiting. I didn't have to wait long. Daniel's car pulled up a few minutes later, and then I saw them, my husband and my stepsister, walking into the hotel, hand in hand. I felt a surge of rage, but I forced myself to stay calm. I took out my phone and snapped a few pictures from the car. They looked so comfortable together, so in love. I had seen enough. My chest tightened with the weight of my discovery, but now I had proof. It was no longer just suspicion, it was real, undeniable. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up, replaying every moment in my head, wondering where I had gone wrong. How could I have been so blind? The betrayal was like a poison, seeping into every corner of my life, and I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I had to confront them, but I couldn't just confront them. I had to make sure they paid for what they had done to me. The next morning, I put my plan into motion. I invited Anna over for lunch. She came, as innocent as ever, with a bright smile on her face. As we sat down to eat, I casually mentioned that Daniel would be coming home early from work that day. Her face lit up, but she quickly masked it with a look of concern, pretending that she had no idea why. When Daniel walked through the door later that afternoon, I was ready. The tension in the room was thick, and I could see the guilt flicker in their eyes as they exchanged nervous glances. I didn't say anything at first. I let the silence linger, letting them squirm under the weight of their lies. Finally, I spoke. "I know." Anna froze, her fork clattering onto her plate. Daniel's face went pale. They both looked at me, wide-eyed, as if they couldn't believe what they were hearing. "I know about the two of you," I continued, my voice steady. "I know about your affair. I know everything." The silence that followed my words was suffocating.